Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for...
Actually, Greg, now that we're through this segment, instead of giving it to you to summarize, which you weren't able to do at the beginning of it, I'm going to give it to David to summarize with his new favorite toy.
That's right. Good segue, Mike. So
Yes, all right.
My big story of the year, I think, if we look back on 2023, 20 years from now, like very clearly the story of the year is going to be
AI.
ChatGPT and its offspring and competitors. And I think, to your point, Greg, Google has been in a very reactive position. A lot of the stuff that they did, I would say, early in the year was totally performative, totally trying to reassure Wall Street that, our entire business model isn't just getting pulled out from underneath us.
Yep.
And so I totally agree with your assessments of like the early stuff was crappy. It was haphazard, et cetera. I think that with the last couple of releases that we've seen from Google, even Bard was a pretty big step forward, I thought, relative to SGE, when it came out sort of mid-year. But I think their last couple of releases, now there's a lot of, swirl around how staged all these Gemini things are, but I think that that's clearly we at least understand, I think, a little bit better the direction that Google is going in with the Gemini releases. And then the Notebook LM sort of beta test that had been sort of closed to a certain pool of people who had opted into it as part of Google Labs, that's now been open to everyone as of this week. And in my initial tests with Notebook LM, to me, this is basically the holy grail of what the ChatGPT experience is supposed to provide for marketers and content creators and all these things. It's so easy to basically create your own data set to build a large language model on top of, but not just build that model, but actually get the export of content that you're looking for. And so we've only tried and just came out this week, right? So we very limited tests, but Mike and I both tried two separate requests using two completely different topics, different data sets, and we're just blown away by the quality of the output without any sort of interference on our part. We didn't have to say, oh, now go back and fix this or whatever. It's just like the first thing that it spat out was really, really impressive. And I just think that this is like, if we can do this as pretty, no offense to you, Mike, but I'll include myself as a pretty dumb, unsophisticated, non-technical user, right? If the two of us can do this, I just think that the possibilities for people who really know how to curate information and how to package information, like this opens up just such a wide range of economic opportunities, new business models. Like it is pretty impressive. So I think that Notebook LM to me has been Google's most impressive sort of branch or offshoot of the sort of ChatGPT beanstalk. And I think that I would encourage you, if you haven't played with it, I think this to me is like, I think it's going to be more remembered. Something like this will be more remembered than the sort of Bing GPT integration, which maybe peeled off 2% of market share, for Microsoft in the search world.
If even
the early SGE stuff, which I think is going to, like, clients have obviously been asking us all year, oh, what do we do about, SGE? And at least my advice has been just wait. Like, this is so kludgy. There's no way this is going to be the final form of what this takes. So I think all this stuff is going to get forgotten. And what's really going to get remembered is whether or not it's Notebook LM as a sort of named product, but the ability to curate your own data sets, that anybody in the world, no matter how technical or non-technical you are, can curate your own AI tools and create really incredible output within milliseconds is just a massive leap forward that I didn't think would be here quite as early as it is.
Well, it's similar conceptually to the GPT, the custom GPT capabilities that ChatGPT released. And what's interesting is that you've got these underlying capabilities that now exist, and there's a question about how you productize it. What's the UI? What's the sort of feature set? And so Google and Microsoft and Apple to a much lesser degree and others will be infusing everything with AI. But the products that will win, beyond the underlying capabilities, the products that will win will be the right mix of sort of use case and UI and, overall usability. Because yeah, go ahead.
And I was going to say, and I think quality of output, I think is a major factor here. And I mean, I'm just one example. I mean, if you're a TikTok influencer, right, and you want to build your own sort of affiliate shopping cart for all the stuff that you recommend, you could build that in a day using something like Notebook LM. And that to me is just an incredible, I mean, it would have taken an entire venture funded software company years to build that, even as recently as 2021, probably. So the sort of democratization of technology driven business models that this represents, I think, is really, really amazing.
For me, what you're saying is that this is whether this is the product or not, the way it works of allowing you to create your own sort of context for the AI to analyze.
Yep.
It's a metaphor for how AI has to work to generate accurate, curated output. An example that I did was I took 3 paragraphs from 3 different newsletters and the transcript of our previous last week show about the LSA scams, put those 3 things in and had it write a summary and an article. And it wrote a truly great article without any factual errors or having to redos. One of the frustrating things about ChatGPT is when it gets it wrong, it's hard to get it right. Yeah. And this is particularly true with imagery. You got to go back and around and back and forth, where this seems to solve that problem. And from an agency point of view, its value comes in repurposing content in multiple different ways and formats. You could have it write a script. You could have it write an article from our newsletters. We could take similar themes from our newsletters and have it write summary analysis that we could then edit. So in terms of repurposing for an agency, it's a great model. And even as a way to generate sort of original content, it's a great model. So,
and at least from where I sit, the ChatGPT, Greg, you brought up the fact they have these features, right? And already, theoretically, I think my problem has been as a fairly non-technical user of ChatGPT, it suffers a lot from the same issues that we talked about, the discovery of Alexa skills and all that. I don't know what plugins I need to enable in order to have ChatGPT analyze a URL and give me information. I don't know how to do. I mean, I do now.
Well, but they're moving to take away that level of individual knowledge.
But I guess what I'd say is I think Google beat them to the punch with this. This to me feels like exactly what those use cases that have so much potential with ChatGPT have been struggling to kind of get over that hurdle. So
the thing that's interesting here is that you're providing the data. Same with the custom GPTs. But you have confidence in the quality of the data since you or your organization have input it. And so you can rely on the output much more readily than something from ChatGPT generally. And this is a critical point that the quality of the underlying data or content that you feed it is critical to the quality of the output. And so, I mean, one of the data quality, content quality is one of the things it's a big issue in this whole world. And you can be confident about, presumably there's going to be less hallucination with Notebook LM if you've fed it the right information.
Here's hoping. But so far, so good.
Yes. All right. I think unless anybody wants to make any final comments, I think we've come to the end of another exciting, thrilling episode of the Near Memo. This is our penultimate episode of the year. I think we're going to try and do one more on LSA fraud and the state of review fraud in the LSA ecosystem with Curtis Boyd of the Transparency Company if the schedule works out. But this will be the last time the 3 of us are together in 2023, I think. So everybody have a great holiday and get some rest, relax. Hopefully some of the world's problems will be less horrific next year in 2024. We can keep our fingers crossed. Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.